previously on Heart Up Hiker.
As I walked down though, I had a twinge in my knee, which is the reason why I'm on the ibuprofen, and it's kind of a weird twinge. It's like not one I've had before. It's this knee, and it's just so annoying, but I can't do anything about the body thing. How do you choose a silly times to do this? There's flood warnings on the Thames, and it's 5 degrees. Temperature's dropping, and I'm doing a 12-mile hike. Try and prove myself my knee is alright. But I'll talk about it later when I wake up all this traffic and people. Good test of mine. I recently bought the Marmot Precip Eco. Good test of that. I'm carrying pretty much a full pack weight. Hopefully to Richmond and back. And we'll find out when it holds up. Is this good weather for ducks? Would you like to comment? Any comment? No? And the benches are flooded. So, I'm currently on my, it's my 5th test hike this week. I decided to practice hiking, which sounds strange probably, but because of my knee, this knee, screwing up over a month ago on the Sat Downs Way trip, which hopefully you've seen that video. If not, I'll link it. I've been doing walks along a stretch of the River Thames that I know very well. It's very flat because I have issues with ascent and descent, so the idea was that's something that's very flat that I can kind of not exactly speed run, but I can kind of abort. If I go for a hike proper, but in the middle of nowhere, the problem is if my knee kicks off again. And apparently it's a problem with the LCL or the adductor muscles, the muscles behind the back of the knee. Whereas in London, I can just jump on a bus. On the bits of the river, maybe a mile or 2 away from a bus. Some maybe a bit further, most of them are fairly close enough. So I'm about 2.5 miles in of a 12-mile hike to Richmond and back. I started it this week, just under a week ago. On Friday I did 3.8 miles using barefoot shoes. Just going past Kingston and back to where I live. I tend to stay a bit vague about where I live. I don't want to tell you exactly where I live. I don't want to dox myself. And then I did a 6.4 hike to Teddington and back with the barefoot shoes. Then I did a 9-mile hike to Ham House and back using the Sauconys because my feet were hurting a bit after the 6. I thought pushing it with the barefoot shoes. I've got these cheap barefoot shoes, probably theirs from China. Then did a sort of 7-mile in the barefoots. I wasn't intending to go that far, but I did. And that kind of hurt my feet, so I kind of had a rest for a day. All of these hikes, apart from the first one, were the full pack. The pack today is probably the closest weight to a full hike pack. I was mostly full for the rest of the week. I put in the heavier tents. I put in some a fuel bottle kind of standing. And a few other things just to kind of like get it to the kind of weight that it would be. It was mostly there in a week. And yeah, after the 7 mile and the barefoots, I was like, ow. Oh, but interestingly, it wasn't the knee. It was my left foot. No, my right foot. My right foot, not left foot. It wasn't the left knee. It was my right foot that was killing me. Because interestingly, although the knee aches, it hasn't really gone to that. Once, the first 6 miles, it got to the point where I was like, before I got back. Otherwise, it's been very good. So, very positive. So knees seems a lot better than it was. I'm doing another 12 miles hopefully today with the full weight pack in the Saucony's, and yeah, hopefully it's gonna be a a good one. I chose a horrible. I didn't really choose. I had a horrible day. It's raining, it's flooding along the river. It's windy. It's gusting up to about 30, 40 plus today. So you've got these wind gusts and rain. So not a great day. Yesterday was perfect conditions really for walking, and I did quite late, but I know it was no rain at all. But yeah, that's how I found out that the barefoot shoes are waterproof as well. Because my second walk in the barefoot like this, there may be a bit less of a flooding risk. See, the osprey is rather drenched, so I actually popped into Selco. Now listen, they're not sponsoring me. And we've got some of these. I really do not like this pull toggle thing. It's a new thing in Osprey, these pull toggle thing. I just really wish they just had no push toggles. It's really weird. I'm not a fan of. Yes, I've got some rubble bags. And thanks to Dose of Dirt for the idea, although they were using compactor bags, which are difficult to get in this country, but they're pretty 60p each, and they're pretty good. So I'm going to use those inside my pack to keep everything dry, because certainly the Osprey does not do that. I mentioned Dose of Dirt, the very good dart. I wanted to shout out a few people that I've been digging, which is Dose of Dirt is a great channel. I love the one where he's hiking with his son and talking about 5 tips to improve your hike. But I'll say, as well as obviously Paul Mesner and Liam Brown, Backpacking UK, those guys. So I'd like to focus on the small channels. So many puddles. So many puddles. It's like QCR. Wishing I broke my waterproof socks this one. Although my Sauconys seem to be they're falling apart unfortunately after over a year. There was this, out of one of them I managed to pull out this fabric from the sole because it's just disintegrating. So I've actually ordered some Saucony 13s I managed to find cheap. So that, yeah, another expense. Shoutouts to Camping Rollers OK. Molly, he break videos. Check out the ones about the fire pits, the DIY fire pits. His first stealth camp. And I think the first one I watched of him was the golf course one. And we're hoping to do a collab together in March. That should be good. Our first collab video on this channel. And then also part of that collab will be an Idiot Outdoors. And again, as a fan of this channel, and I've been enjoying this concept too, with the outdoors in, which I love that idea of having a pub outdoors. There's a sort of a movable pop-up hiking pub of one. I hope to drink there, maybe the second ever customer, second or third. But I like the one he did behind a wall near a tool station. That was ridiculous. He called it most ridiculous stealth camping. Yeah, it was ridiculous. But good. I love those videos. He does a lot of urban stealth camping, something I don't really do on this channel. But I am very inspired by Steve Wallace, Camping with Steve, who does a lot of that sort of work. Work is work. Well, it's work. A lot of that stuff. And I have respect for people who urban camp, because it's tricky. When you're doing stealth camping in a busy area, it is much more of a stress and much more easier to be found out than doing some remote area or wild camping. Stealth camping is just in a busy place. I think with anyone else really. I mean, I watch a whole load of channels, and I'm very bad at not shouting them out. I mean, these are the ones in the hiking space. I watch a lot of other stuff as well around autism and YouTube generally, music production, music stuff, a whole load of stuff. But yeah, this is probably the ones I've been digging most recently in the hiking space. As I say, I think us smaller channels just stick together. We are the upcoming new breed. Hopefully my cinematography will get better, especially trying to shoot this sort of time. I mean, it's probably blurring out because it's just getting so dark. But I'm currently coming up to Teddington Lock, which I'll show you in a second. That's Teddington. That's the bridge at Teddington. Not a Waterloo sunset, more of a Teddington sunset, which isn't as romantic. Currently at Hamlands, and I have to say, I kind of miss the days where you'd actually get floods and long stretch. You might still get them at Peacham, but you had this thing where you could go off a walk in January, February, and you just suddenly the path would just descend into a massive stream of water. But yeah, I miss the days where this was all flooded, because you've got the river over there, and this lot used to quite often flood, or used to break through the path here, and so you'd come down here. Before it was made into a cycle super highway shared passes where you get bombarded by bicyclists quite often nowadays, which is not something I'm particularly fond of. But yeah, it used to be like you were almost like walking on a causeway, because you'd have this path running through, and it'd be flooded on that side, and it'd be flooded on that side, and it was quite magical. It might be flooded down at Petersham. We'll find out. But it's a kind of an interesting one, because you can camp. Well, you're not supposed to, but it's common land, so you could probably camp in there, and Petersham Lodge Woods looks quite likely as well. But you'd have to be careful, because as I say, if I don't think this will break its banks like it used to, but yeah, if the water rises there, it can be quite boggy and can sort of flood, because this is kind of like Petersham, it's flood meadows, so it's supposed to kind of flood into there, and the Petersham meadows and things like that. So they all flood. At one of the bits, I think probably near Petersham, I once had to walk along this low wall which was submerged, which would be a high wall, and with a very deep water on either side. And look, I didn't have a heavy pack on, but it was like a trapeze act, and that was interesting. I was like, if I'm gonna get very wet if I fall in. But I think those days are gone now. Those days are gone. When they turned it into a cycleway, they raised up the banking. And sometimes you'd find people whizzing past here, and then you'd find them screeching to a halt because there's a tree, a tree that's across the path. That still happens every once in a while. So the people who go down here without lights, one of the times I was down here in the past week, at 2 a.m, it's quite spooky at 2 a.m, I can tell you. And yeah, someone was riding down here without lights, and he almost hit me. So there are people who stupidly ride along the river without any lights. Interestingly, there's these little reflectors, if we see that there, on the sides of the river. And I can see those in my red lights. The deep red light seems to really pick up anything slightly reflected, including the eyes of foxes. I've seen mice down here, but lots of foxes. But that's probably why there's reflectors on the side here, because every once in a while because otherwise some cyclists, but even would go straight into the river. But the funny thing is that the ones without lights will be able to see anything at all, especially on a night like tonight, where there's no moon. Well, there is a moon. The moon's up there. I don't know if you can see it, but it's very misty moon. And there's the river. See, I've been walking down here for decades. I might try and do a camp in there at some point. It's there's one. Oops. It's supposed to slow down for pedestrians, not beep at them. A mouse, but I missed it because of the stupid cyclist. See what I mean? They just beep at you or ring at you. You expect to jump out the way, and it's like, it might be a cycle highway, but it's a shared highway, and they're supposed to slow down for pedestrians, and they don't. Still rushing. It was last night. Bridge. I made it. I'll show you a picture shortly. And I had some popcorn. You can't see that. Anyway, it's all that rain. Now to head back home. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Until I'll get back again, and I will survive when you will survive. Everything will survive. But yes, these test practice hikes are going well, so you will get new content with me hiking that wasn't for January very soon, because I think the knee is good enough to test it on some hills. I will probably put a video in the centre of the screen. I don't know what. Probably the last video I've done, probably the day 4 of the Shoutouts way, and I'll speak to you soon.